Hello and welcome to my channel. I am honored and privileged to be once again joined by Major General Harsha Kakkar, who is a respected voice in strategic affairs relating to this great nation of India. Sir, thank you so much for taking out the time, and I look forward to hearing your views. I'm sure a lot of us will be looking forward to clarifications of the various doubts. I hope with the few questions that I have prepared, I'll be able to answer some of the questions.
Yeah, sure.
So, firstly, I'd like to ask you, with regards to this disengagement, is it really a win for anybody between India or China?
It is a win for India to a very large extent. And for China, it's actually, one would say, uh, going back to where they were without any major benefits. The reason being, we were from the beginning insisting on status quo. That was our demand right from the first day. And what we've got so far on both sides of the Pangong Tso is status quo. As far as Gogra, Hot Springs, Galwan area is concerned, that's not a very major issue because you just have to pull back again and it's going to be status quo. Tepsang will take some discussion because that precedes April 2020. So that will take some discussion, but that is also likely to get resolved because the intentions on both sides appear to be clear. And we were not looking at, you see, after all, when you're discussing with another nation which is equally powerful, it's not going to exceed to, letting you hold on to where you are and say, okay, we'll pull back, you hold on to where you are. So it was either continuing eyeball to eyeball and then at some stage of time, expecting a small incident to boomerang into a major crisis. Or alternatively, what we had insisted was status quo as of April 2020, because that is what was to our satisfaction and to our demand. That is what we were insisting on. So that is what you ultimately got.
All right. So, but for the Chinese to suddenly come up with a decision like this and agree to, I mean, this is what we've been told that the talks have been on for a long time. They've been discussing these matters. And why so suddenly have the Chinese decided to act on these things?
It's not sudden. You had 9 rounds of military talks. You've had possibly more rounds of WMCC meetings. You had back channel discussions. You had talks between ministers as well as between the NSA and his counterpart. The reason that has been there is you had to narrow down differences. Whether the Chinese wanted to hold on to some area which we refused, then we wanted to hold on to our areas which they were unwilling. So you had to start narrowing down differences and come down finally to where it was common. And then when also there was a realization that any push forward would have meant an open conflict, larger number of casualties, and no warrant and no guarantee of success. Now you couldn't escalate it all across the front because neither would the world let you. And if you had to go conventional, you would be the loser. And for China, losing the reputation of the PLA, of which it is so proud of and so busy modernizing, would have been a loss which will be very difficult for it to overcome for a long time. It's taken them 3 to 4 decades to overcome Vietnam.
Correct.
And 79 in Vietnam. And the movie that they've released is on the Korean War. They still can't release a movie on Vietnam. Or they don't want another one to come up. So for that reason also they realized that the surprise that they had. Plus within the Chinese hierarchy, if you look at the way there's been a change in the top leadership of the Western Theatre Command,
Yes,
you've
sir.
brought in a largely non-known figure into the area. Now, by bringing him in, automatically the control of the Western Theatre Command is now moved to the CMC, the Central Military Commission. And thereby they began calling the shots because what was intended for was not achieved. The little bit of achievement that they got was offset. So ultimately, you had to look for some solution which would have been face saving to some extent. Now, by going in for status quo, you've been able to say that we wanted to give, that is what they will project internally. We wanted to convey a message to India, we did it. In 62, we went in and came out. And in 2021, we went in and came out. That is what they will try and project internally to save face. For us, our demand was very simple. We want you back where you were in April 2020, and that's it.
That's pretty interesting that they will have to actually find a spin to this entire thing.
I really don't know whether they've actually conveyed the message internally, because the announcement on the Chinese side was made by their defense spokesperson. I am not aware how much of it has been discussed on WeChat. I don't think much of it would be. I also don't think they would have projected the story correctly on their internal news. After all, everything is filtered within China. You
Hmm.
can't read you can't read anything which is global. So the truth may not have flowed within China to the level to which we did, because for us it was a defense minister announcing in parliament. So it was a national announcement. Now, on their case, it was only a defense spokesperson who made a release. And after that day, there has been no write-ups per se on the issue, except an odd mention in the Global Times on the withdrawal moving as per schedule.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned the Depsang plains, and you said that it would take some more time because there is a heavy amount of entanglement, if I may put it that way, in that area. Why would India actually start in a place like Pangong Tso, which has the so-called advantage, which has been discussed so much in the news today? We occupy the heights. We have a very strategic advantage in that area. Why would we start in a place where we have complete advantage of the situation?
The first and the most important reason why Pangong Tso was the starter point, was the first point in discussion, is that that is the place where troops are very close in contact.
Hmm.
And a small incident there could have blown everything up and nothing would have come back. Depsang Plains, if you read the remarks from the army side, the army has always said that that's not a major issue for us, we'll handle it. One. Number two, that precedes 2020, so that's a different part to handle. It is not part of the same incident of 2020. It precedes that. Third, despite all the claim by people on Depsang and the importance of Depsang, you've got to realize that the army, for the force levels that are currently deployed and everything which exists in Depsang, the army is very confident of dealing with it in case it even comes to a push comes to shove. So that is not a major concern issue, and therefore they said that we will handle this later, which may possibly be. There is also talk that this may come up in the next stage of discussions after Pangong.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be able to come down to Depsang, and from Depsang then finally move to Gogra and Hot Springs, which again is not going to be a very major issue. So they would handle that. But since there is a broad agreement on all regions, so they're taking it region by region.
All right, sir. What do you read of the intentions? I mean, it's very difficult to obviously analyze the Chinese of all the people in the world. But what do you think are their intentions right now? Are they retreating to regroup, or because they want to get away from the winters and come back in the summers, or do you find that they would try something funny again?
Not in Ladakh for some time. That's number one, because you've changed your force levels, you've enhanced your force levels, you're on the alert. They may try a little bit of salami slicing action somewhere else. But also the fact that they would now need to be careful because they've had the experience of a major incident. They wouldn't want to risk it anywhere else also. So possibly for some time now, there would be a cool off. A small incident here and there. After all, the LOCs are overlapping. The LACs are overlapping. And the fact that they're overlapping, each one wants to move up to his claim lines. So because of that, there would always be an odd patrol incident happening here or there, a little bit of shoving, pushing here and there. These incidents will happen, but not of the type that happened here. But those are a regular feature. They've always happened. They will continue to happen on account of the perception of the LAC. That's something which we need to be ready for.
So till the time this whole LAC issue is not resolved, this kind of incidents are bound to continue and in the future as well.
It will continue. Possibly here it will be less because now when they come out with the patrolling policy, that will only come out for Ladakh. So that will try and ensure that these incidents don't occur. After all, both the nations will want to move up to their claim lines.
Hmm.
So that is something that both will want to do. After all, you cannot let go of your claim lines. So that is something that will happen. But so in the other areas also, where you don't have any such agreement, there will always be incidents as nations try and reach up to their claim lines, which are overlapping one another.
So that's one thing that I think all of us need to be prepared for is to the ongoing tussle between India and China.
That will continue, but it will not be of of this sort of level again,
All right. Okay. So
at least for quite some time.
that's something which is a this thing. So we were talking about the 9 rounds of talks that have taken place. There are more scheduled. There are. I mean, it's been happening quite often at multiple levels. As a matter of fact, is it that we've purposefully taken a stand to put the Chinese through the winters? And is it that India is developing general terrain, if I may put it that way, as another obstacle between the India and China area?
It's not that. Basically, you see, when the talks have begun, there has to be both sides will forward proposals, and you didn't expect the proposals to come on day one. After all, you have to slowly start getting over the differences, coming closer on the differences, and trying to reach a point which can be acceptable, including in procedures. Now, that takes time. And the fact that you were very clear in what you wanted, you were not asking for anything more than what was as a norm existed for the last 50 years.
Hmm.
So, automatically, you were sticking to that basic requirement. But how would that requirement come? Also, there were multiple issues. Who would pull out? Where would you pull out from first? How would the procedures go? After all, it's two nations talking. Neither would like to trust the other so easily. So
Hmm.
you've got to establish the rules, the regulations, the parameters. Secondly, the level of talks at which they take place, those talking are not the ones to take the decision. The final approvals have to come from behind.
Hmm.
Now, that approvals come, they are conveyed on the hotline, then the next set of proposals are made, they are discussed, war gamed, analyzed, put forward, then discussed, then the meeting takes place. So all this takes time. In between, there was a change of command in the Chinese side. Now, that guy had never served in this sector. So he had to get into picture, he had to understand the entire thing. So that is where again the time factor came. So
Hmm.
these are things that take time. But the fact was that you push them through a winter which they've never done since 62. And that itself, they've also realized that what it is to serve in winters, they've seen the difference of their troops and our troops in handling winters. And they've seen the difference in professionalism. They've seen the difference in the sort of dedication and the capability levels of both sides. So that makes a world of a difference.
Hmm.
Now, that difference that is being made is what actually counts. And that also has an impact when you're into discussions, when you're into talks. The other factor also comes that for us also to maintain forces in winters is a very costly affair.
Yes.
And of course, when you're maintaining forces, so you also were looking for a solution prior to it, but when it didn't, well, you had no option.
Then you went ahead.
Yes.
So, how would you rate the handling of this particular standoff with something like, let's say, a Sundramchu, which wherein we also maneuvered pretty well. In this case, also, if you see the entire battle was won in because of maneuvering. How would you rate the difference between both the incidents and how was it handled?
The difference was basically that this time you had the backing of a government which is willing to let you push as much as you wanted.
Okay. Hmm.
Right. That makes a difference because if the government is willing to risk the escalation, like it's done with Pakistan when you went into Balakot.
Hmm.
After all, you're using air paths. You're willing to risk escalation. So if you're willing to risk escalation, you convey a very different message. And that is the message which the other side understands. Now, if you're not willing to risk escalation, you're willing to just keep it combined and just keep it into a very small region, and you're looking at a stalemate which will continue for a long time. Now, that has another connotation.
Hmm.
So, and then you see, it also depends with passage of time because, after all, when that happened and when this happens, there's a world of a difference in the capabilities of the forces. So, that has another count factor. Right? After all, today you could afford to airlift your tanks all the way there immediately. So, you were
Right.
able to build up with full speed,
Hmm.
which was something which you could not have done in those days because you did not even have the roads. So, the infrastructure has changed. Now, when everything changes, the scenario changes, it conveys a different message because the government intent is different.
Hmm.
And then you took in further action, which you never did then. You took in economic action, you took in diplomatic action by enhancing the Quad, by aligning yourself closer with the US. So, what you've actually done is you've conveyed a collection of multiple messages
Hmm. Hmm.
that exactly what you don't want us to do, we're doing. And this is what is our intent. Okay, so those are the things that have helped move things forward.
That's interesting, sir. So the talking about the Pangong Tso itself, the North Bank. I mean, couple of photographs that came out between Finger 3 and Finger 4 that looked very dangerous, obviously, to walk. Uh, that area, we are. I mean, there are loads of opinions about that, but the most talked about thing is about the Kailash range. Um, One officially, there is no mention about the Kailash range in the Raksha Mantri statement in specific. So, what do you think is actually happening there? Are we planning to give up that thing or come back to the position that we were prior to this standoff? Or uh, if yes, if we are planning to leave that, is it going to become another Haji Pir for us?
Those people who talk about this have not actually understood the fact. Firstly, when you're looking at the Kailash Ridge, you're looking at a standoff. Basically, you're looking at coming back to April 2020.
Hmm.
For the last 60 years, you haven't been there. You've gone there now. Okay, now you want to stay there. And you expect the Chinese to agree to all your demands because they are like small kids whom you say whatever you want and they will agree. After all, like I said in the beginning, you're dealing with another nation.
Hmm.
When you insist on April 2020, you don't want to follow it yourself. Will it ever work? Your demand is April 20. You say you go back, but then you say, I will not go back. Only you will go back. Remember, you're dealing with another nation.
Hmm.
Secondly, in the agreements that you're going to make, you're going to be pushing in actions to ensure that it doesn't happen. Their action and your action. This is one. There would be other options with India which we've not yet raised out. Okay, it's not that we are clowns at our level. The guys sitting who are dealing with it, who are on ground, are very well aware. Now, the pullback, when you're going to say, is going to take place by stage across all sectors. You cannot have a half-hearted action on your side and you expect a full-hearted action on their side. I
Hmm.
mean, I think when you're looking at international diplomacy, you're looking at an international agreement. You're not looking at it in a manner which only suits you and not the other. Now, when you say you're going to be at your permanent post at finger 3, people say the area is on the gap that has been created is Indian territory. Who says so? China claims up to finger 4.
Yes, sir.
So isn't 4 to 8 part of their claim line? I wouldn't say it's their territory. So it's actually both were getting affected equally,
Hmm.
right? We're not going to be too far from Kailash Ridge. We are at Chushul, so which is just about 2 kilometers. Our camp, which is there, is about 2 kilometers. The only thing you're going to keep at the camp, you're going to keep troops who are readily inclined. After all Kailash Ridge was anyway one or two posts were held by China and the balance were by us. So it's always there that if he comes into one or two, you go into the rest. But when you go in for an agreement, you have to go in for a whole complete logical solution. You cannot tell China, you go back, I'm going to sit here, buddy. That's it. You like it or not, you have to sign the agreement, you have to pull back. Who is he? Will he accept it? If you were there, would you accept it?
Absolutely not.
Then how do you expect them to do it? If he were to tell you, you go back from Kailash, I will sit where I am, will we accept it?
Correct, sir. I mean, this
So,
is.
let's grow into that stage that you're dealing with international diplomacy. You're
Hmm.
dealing with a nation which is equally strong or possibly stronger. Okay, economically, militarily, in every form. Right? The fact that you've been able to create an environment to come down to where you wanted, we need to accept that that environment has to be ratified by both nations.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so, and it's a nation you're dealing with. Even if it was a very small and a weak country, anyone, you think they would sacrifice their land for you? Your own neighbor Nepal is today fighting with you for that land.
Hmm.
And you look at the way they're doing it. Okay, they claim it's theirs. Now, you think a country like China will let you do it? Now,
That's
if you,
absolutely true.
so you have to, we have to mature and we have to look at the situation from a mature eye. We shouldn't be looking at it like children here. That
Hmm.
we will tell China, China will do what we say, we will sit where we are and we'll tell you, you get out. Kind of a funny thing here. If he was to tell us the same, would we accept it?
Hmm.
Then,
Absolutely. That is the one of the arguments which you have to give something to take something. I mean,
see, and our demand was simple, April 2020. Were we there in April 2020? Then we could have said, look, we were here in April 2020. So we are not going back because this was our base in April 20. If you want him to go back to April 20 and you say, I will not go back to April 20, will it be accepted?
correct, sir. So what is your perception about? There are a lot of naysayers about this whole disengagement process, which is bound to be there. You know we are
We're a
a
democracy.
democracy. Everybody has a voice. Do they actually have any depth in their arguments? And some of them, I mean, surprisingly, are from the forces. Some guys have actually served in that area. Do they actually
See,
have any depth?
you have to, like I told you just now, the moment you look at the big picture, the moment you look at the fact that it's a diplomatic decision, it's a decision taken after a lot of thought, and it's exactly what you were demanding right from the time the incident happened. We will not budge back till we get status quo. Right. Now, status quo is going to come in stages. The reason why in stages is there's lack of trust. There is a desire to monitor. There's a desire to ensure it is being implemented. Now you've come down to the stage that any structures that you made post April 2020 will be removed.
Hmm.
So if you're going down to that level, so you've got to accept that it's got to be done by both sides,
Yes, sir.
and you've got to be logical. And there are lots of things in the agreement which will never come out in public domain, which will be there to ensure that you don't have such incidents happening again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they will come. They won't come out because these are agreements signed between governments, and possibly the agreements will say that there will be no move forward because if one decides to break it, the other will jump for it. And it's not that you're not going to be prepared for it. You're going to have permanent force levels now ready for such actions. You learned your lesson, so you will have that with you all the time. So automatically, it's not going to be a one-way ticket to Mexico. So it's going to be from both sides.
Mhm.
And since it's going to be from both sides, so the agreement would state that when can you move, at what timings, they either will follow timings, either they will follow days, whatever they will follow to ensure that the claim lines of both nations remains their claim lines till the LAC is finally agreed upon. Which God knows when, whether it's in our generation or the next, I don't know. Xi Jinping says leave it to the next generation, so you don't know. But that is the way it has to be in international diplomacy.
There are no quick answers.
Nothing. It has to, after all, you've taken months and months before you've come down to achieving what you wanted to achieve and exactly what you wanted to achieve, which was status quo.
Hmm.
You cannot expect him to give you status quo and you will not give it back to him.
Sir, in our last talk, we spoke about what were the intentions of the Chinese to come here. Leaving the intentions apart, what I want to know is, in your opinion, do you think this was a political decision to try and poke around with India, or was it a military decision? Let me expand, if you don't mind, sir. Why I want to say this is the political decision taken for a particular reason that we may not be aware of, in a place that the politicians may not be aware of. Because that kind of dissent that could come back from the PLA into the political decision makers would not be there. So is it that the politicians have taken a decision to come into this kind of a terrain and they've made a mistake, or what is your opinion about this?
Really, frankly, none in India would be able to give you a straightforward answer. But two, three things come into picture. Why is the decision to reverse taken the moment the Western Theatre commander is changed in the first meeting after that? Okay, the same guy who was sitting there, I think Zhang
Yes,
Zodong,
Zhang Zodong.
was the same guy responsible for Doklam.
Doklam, yes, sir.
He has been an India beta right from the beginning. Okay, now the 8 rounds of talks held when he was the Western Theatre commander got you nowhere. He got shifted. The guy who came in was a relative unknown. Never served in the theatre. He was not a member of the CMC, which meant that he was brought in here for the CMC to take control of the situation. That is what it appears. And that is how in the first round of talks, everything moved so well. And you look at the speed of disengagement. They're doing it faster than us. We can't keep up with their speed of disengagement. Right. Now, why this sudden thing? So that is where the doubt comes in. How much was the political hierarchy involved? And once the action is taken, the political hierarchy cannot reverse a decision taken by someone, but that will indicate a different picture globally. So possibly that could be one. The other thought is, after all, you've activated the whole of Ladakh. Now, would this have been done without the knowledge of Xi Jinping? I don't know. The fact is that there were no comments that were being made from there. Except, of course, for the Global Times, there was nobody else who was commenting. Right. And they were only saying that both of us should meet halfway, both of us should meet halfway. That is what was the regular comment coming by the spokesperson. Right. So it's difficult to actually fathom out, but the sequence in the last about a month or so gives you a different picture.
Correct, sir. It's an interesting scenario. Actually, this is the reason why I asked this question, is because when the general of the area got changed, we have a breakthrough, and the previous guy obviously won't budge. So, is it that guy has been sent across by the CMC to just pull this thing down enough?
No, they were waiting for him to retire. He came to he reached the age of 65. He had to go.
Yes, sir.
So they were also waiting for him to go. After all, if you change him and you move him elsewhere, and he was hoping that had he achieved success, you see, it was again a personal ambition. He wouldn't have just gone home. He'd have been inducted into the CMC, given something else, pushed up the chain further. But the fact was that nothing succeeded. You got blocked. If you wanted to achieve something, you should have come all the way down. But you couldn't. And when you got stalled, the only option was to enhance tensions and open an all-front operation, which would have meant a debacle. That would have been the time when when Beijing would have put a stall on his foot and told him, you can't move forward now. And they would have waited possibly for him to go.
Because the main thing that I figure out from this, from what you're saying, and correct me, I mean, I'm just speculating around here, is this guy who did he take this action unilaterally, or did he actually discuss it with somebody low in the CMC? Just probably to gain some points here and there. It can be a possibility or not, sir?
Possibly. Anything can be possible, because you don't know. I mean, there's nothing which is actually flowed. If the Indian External Affairs Minister say, I still don't know why they did it. If he can make a public statement not once but n number of times. we can only speculate.
Well, so the Chinese also involved the Pakistanis during this thing, and that is pretty evident. They wanted to do some exercise with them, which is normally not publicized as much as this thing. What happens to their dear old friends?
No, no, nothing. It was the exercises are normal. They wouldn't have got them in because had the Pakis been involved in this, China would have lost global face.
Hmm.
It is incapable of handling. So the Pakis were not involved. The exercises are normal. India continued with its exercises with other countries. It was not that we were involving the US anywhere in it or any other ally in it. We were doing it on our own.
Hmm.
And we openly announced we don't need anyone. We are able to handle it ourselves.
Correct.
So same would have been with China. The exercises are normal.
But the use of the Skardu base, as per se by the Chinese Air Force, these are unrelated?
These are only exercises. There's nothing which is linked with this.
Okay. Hmm. So, talking about this entire disengagement, there is another thought that comes to mind. Is it that the Chinese are moving away from this area because they fear a threat from the second carrier of the United States, which is coming into the South China Sea today?
No, no, no. It is not that. This has got nothing to do with naval power. That's number one. We're talking of a land frontier here. It is the US naval power which is moving into the South China Sea is basically to deny them any or to push them back from any attempts to move into Taiwan.
Hmm.
After all, there were two fronts that were being activated, Ladakh and Taiwan. The question comes, will the concentration move towards Taiwan? Will it not? We don't
Hmm.
know. Time will tell. Because there the action, the air power of the Chinese is moving very close to the Taiwanese coast almost on a daily basis. So and then plus they've even begun threatening the Senkaku Islands in Japan. The US had to make a statement that we will defend the Senkaku Islands and Taiwan against any Chinese push. So let's see where it moves. It has nothing to do with that. There is no link between what's happening here and the move of the US aircraft carriers into the South China Sea. Like we discussed it all through,
Hmm.
it was something which has taken time. After all, you've had 9 rounds, and finally it's come in the ninth round.
Hmm.
And it's come after the chain of command. Now, Western Theater Command has no responsibility for Taiwan. That's a separate command altogether.
All
So
right.
there is no need for linking up this with that. They're two
Hmm.
separate commands and they have their own responsibility. They've got their own force levels.
Okay.
Troops from here are unlikely to go there.
Hmm. So, what do you think will be the way forward for this entire thing? As a matter of fact, we were talking about the speed at which the PLA is moving back. There were some reports I was reading. I don't know how far it is correct, but they've actually crossed the finger eight. They're reducing their strength at Sirijap. Um, I don't know how much of this is accurate and stuff like that. Do you think they will follow the similar pattern in Depsang?
See, as far as India is concerned, the Indian Army has made ample statements.
Hmm.
That with the force levels that we have, Depsang is not a major threat. That's why we're not rushing into Depsang first.
Hmm.
But the intention is to get peace all along the LAC. Now that the opportunity exists, let's do it. So that is one issue. And it will come through. I mean, after all, there is an agreement. There is a desire now from both sides. And there is a positive indication which is coming in. So let's see. We need to give it time. I mean, rather than speculate, let's wait.
So my last question. We all know very clearly that the Chinese understand strength. And by a lot of actions that have been taken, maybe criticized as freely as it happens in India. But I personally feel that the strength was projected very, very well in all levels, military, diplomatic, country as a whole got together and projected a certain amount of strength towards the Chinese. Because every time in history where the Chinese have tried to, indulge with us, and whenever there's been a response after that, the leaders meet and things become normal for about 10, 15 years. There are minor incidents here and there and stuff like that. Do you think we are heading for a similar scenario again?
See, a lesson that gets conveyed takes quite a lot of time before the other side gets over it. The fact is that more important than the Chinese is that our government should not get complicit. We need to continue building force capability
Hmm.
as a major deterrent power. We've learned this. For the last 5 years, the government belief was that the Chinese border can be handled by diplomacy. For that reason, the defense budgets went way below.
Yes.
It started creating a capability gap which they exploited. Immediately, you rushed in with 20,000 crores worth of emergency procurement. Right? Now, we shouldn't again get back to that same phase.
Hmm.
Should continue building the capabilities that are needed. The faster we close the gap between the two countries, as far as capabilities are concerned, the better will be the deterrence that we will have to prevent any such incident any other time.
Hmm.
If we do not do that and we again go back to the old stage as we were even 2 years ago, we will ask for trouble. The Wuhangs and the Chennais and all these meetings that continue going, if we start falling for that, then we will ask for the same trouble. But if we decide to keep those aside and keep building capabilities on the other, we will continue holding up and providing a major deterrence to them for any future plans
I
that
think
they may
that's
even think of having.
I think that's one thing we need to learn from the Chinese, to keep building their capability no matter what your relation with the other country is. They've done it pretty well with their road
No, they
infrastructure.
haven't. See, as far as they are concerned, they are basically looking to compete with the US. But in the bargain, automatically the capability gap with us is gone, has increased fairly high.
Hmm.
Now, you can't match the budget they have because for us the budget is fixed and our requirements are multiple and it's far lower than what their budget is.
Hmm.
But the but the essential requirement of building capabilities to deter future prospects 20, 30 years hence needs to start now. Capability building takes decades. So you need to start doing it now. Only then will you be able to keep closing the gap. If you let the gap build, we'll be struggling to close it in later years.
With a similar focus, I believe.
Correct.
I think this was great, sir. Thank you so much for joining me today, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. And as always, I must say, I mean, the last time itself was pretty good. We're doing pretty well in the accounts as well. Uh,
Good.
it's always nice to hear a military perspective rather than listening to the so-called experts that sit on our television sets. Most of them have their own agendas. Thank you so much for joining me, sir, and providing us with your knowledge. I hope to catch up with you again.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.